Good afternoon and welcome to the 9th in our series of Tea Tuesday events and the 4th of 2021. My name is Hilary Woodhead. I am NAPA's Executive Director and I'm delighted to host these live events, which enable me to drink tea and chat with fabulous people. This is a free event. If you would like to make a small donation, you can do so, maybe perhaps the price of a cup of tea or coffee, and you can do that on our donate page or you can text in. And my colleague Gianna will put the information in the chat box if you'd like to do that. I'm delighted today to be chatting with the wonderful Chris Maddocks. After a career in law enforcement, Chris now lives by the sea in Eastbourne with her partner and her cats. She is committed to raising awareness about the lived experience of dementia. She is an ambassador for the Alzheimer's Society, the Lewy Body Society and NAPA. And she is an active member of the DEEP network and a dementia craftivist. And I'm hoping she's going to tell us a little bit more about that soon. So we're going to spend the next half hour or so reflecting on the concept of quality of life and what that means to Chris, and also the role of activity engagement and the importance of being engaged when you're living with dementia. We hope that you will have lots of questions, so please don't be shy, come forward and ask questions in the chat. And we'll do our best to answer them. So good afternoon, Chris. How are you?
Good afternoon. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity of coming on here to chat with you today, Hilary.
It's really lovely to have you here, Chris. Thank you very much.
I just feel a lot of people won't talk about their dementia, and it did take me quite a long time to accept the fact that I had dementia at the age of 60. My dad had had Alzheimer's disease, so I knew what it was like for him. And I never once said, it's not fair, why me? And I thought, I have a choice here. I can either sit down and watch daytime television all day, or I can try to explain to people what it's like for me living with dementia and to raise awareness. So I started giving some talks, and people said that they liked the way that I presented my talks, and I just got invited to give more and more talks. So to me, it's all about raising awareness.
Yeah. And do you think that having being able to use your platform really to share your experience, do you think that impacts on your quality of life?
It does, absolutely. Because when I had my diagnosis and lost my job, I felt I had no purpose in life. And all of us, we all need a purpose in life. We all need to feel that we've got something that we can give and we've got qualities that we can share. Yeah. And I went from feeling hopeful to feeling hopeless, and from feeling useful to feeling useless when I had my diagnosis. So I decided that I would get up off my bottom and I would try and do things. So I just started giving talks, and whoever would listen to me, I would speak to them. And I just found as well, I think that the thing I wanted to scream and shout from the rooftop was, I'm still me. Because I lost a few of my friends when I had my dementia diagnosis, and I couldn't understand why that was. Because I'm still me. And I think a lot of people, when you mention the word dementia, they think of the end stage of people living with dementia, maybe sat in the corner and not communicating. And they forget that there are other stages in dementia. And there's a beginning, a middle, and an end when you're living with dementia. So my motto is I want to do as much as I can whilst I still can.
Well, thank you for your incredible contribution, from NAPA, but also, from all the other organisations that you're working so hard to support. And it's very, very much appreciated, Chris, for all that you're doing. Thank you. And this topic of quality of life, I mean, it's something that we've talked about quite a bit, isn't it, since we met? I just wonder, what does that terminology, what does it mean to you, that term, quality of life? Because we hear it a lot, don't we?
We do. I'll tell you how it came about. Maybe it was because I was a police officer for 30 years, but I like to dot the I's and cross the T's. And I wanted, I've done a will, and I've done my lasting powers of attorney for the financial and the physical side of things. And I thought it was important because I know some of the things now that I would like later on down my dementia journey. And so it's good to have those things documented. And it makes it easier for my partner and for family members to know what some of my wishes are.
Yeah.
And then last year, I've been looking to do, what's it called? You know, an end of life stuff when you want to get things in
Yeah.
order. And I spoke to my GP and said, look, I want to make sure that things are covered for end of life. And a couple of my GPs just fobbed me off and sort of said, oh, well, you know, go and see a solicitor or something. Anyway, I had a call from my GP to say that they had something called a respect care plan, and she'd like to see me to fill in this respect care plan. So it was things from a medical stance as to things that I would like towards end of life. And things like do not resuscitate, do I want infections to be treated by tablets, all sorts of things. And one of the things that came up, I said, well, I'm happy to have interventions and things as long as I have quality of life. And the GP said to me, well, what is quality of life? And put me on the spot a little bit.
Yeah.
But I thought, to me, quality of life is knowing and loving the people around me that I know. And I thought, I think I wouldn't have quality of life if I didn't recognize people, if I didn't know people, if I couldn't have an association with a person. And then I was asked the question, I'll go back one step, because I've always said that if I get to the point where it's too difficult to look after me, for my carer or for whoever is looking after me, that please put me into a care home. Because having seen my father go through Alzheimer's and pass away, his partner couldn't leave the house. You know, she was a prisoner there for 24 hours a day. And I don't want, whoever's looking after me, I don't want them to be in that situation. So I said, you know, just put me into a care home if I get that bad. And people say, really, you're happy to do that? And I said, well, yes. So I was then asked, if you're in a care home and you're sat around a table with, you know, other people in the care home, and you're chatting away, or you may be singing or drawing, and you seem contented, is that quality of life? And at that point, I didn't know the answer. And I thought, oh, yeah, if I appear contented and happy,
Yeah.
I suppose that is quality of life. And it's just this question that's been going round and round in my mind. If you've got a physical condition, such as cancer or heart condition, something like that, I think quality of life takes on a totally different meaning. Because you may know, I mean, my mum had cancer. She died when she was 60. And we were told that my mum had 6 months left to live. So there was a time scale in place there. With dementia, we don't have a time scale. We don't know how quickly we're going to deteriorate, or how badly, you know, a dip might be. So it's not straightforward. It's not plain sailing. So I'd be interested to know if other people have got any thoughts on what is quality of life for a person living with dementia. Because I don't know. I don't really know the answer.
No, and I think it's a really interesting conversation to have, isn't it? Because it's so personal. It's so personal. And I think it's, you know, interesting that your initial thought was, well, if I recognize the people around me, the people that I know and that I love and that I know love me, that's quality of life. But actually, when you were thinking about, well, actually, if I live well with dementia until I have the later stages of dementia, but I seem content, then maybe that will be quality of life. And
Yeah.
I'm interested in that, because I think our perceptions of quality of life are often very much in the moment, aren't they? It's kind of how we're feeling it today. What's my quality of life today? You know, what's my well-being like today?
Yeah.
And it's hard to know what's going to make us feel content in the future, isn't it? Until we're there. So yes.
I think what stage of the dementia journey that we're at, I think quality of life is feeling that you still have a sense of purpose. And that can come from anything. it was quite a few years ago now, but my grandmother was in a care home, and she had dementia, and a lot of the care home staff were Filipino people, and my grandmother was a Welsh speaker, so she decided she was going to teach the Filipino girls how to speak Welsh, and she did. She got them to count up to 10. But I can remember visiting my grandmother one day, and they were all sat in this lounge with the television on and looking really bored. And it made me feel cross because they also looked quite sad. So I asked if I could do a CD and take it in and play it. And yes, it was Vera Lynn type music, but I'm talking quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I put this music on, and they suddenly started tapping their hands and um, tapping their feet, and then started to smile. And I thought, well, it doesn't take much just to play some music that people know. And I felt that just by doing that, I gave them back a little bit of quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And making that connection is so easy with music, isn't it? It can make such a difference. Absolutely. And I'm thinking a little bit about how you've said a bit about how time passes and your plans for the future. How important do you think it is to plan for the future?
I think it's so important, and that's why I've done my will and I've done my lasting powers of attorney. And I can give you an example. A friend of mine who's passed away now had a bad car accident, and she had very serious head injuries, didn't think she was going to survive. But she lived like a cabbage for 7 years, and she was young. And we all said that she wouldn't want to be alive in that state where she knew nothing of anything that was going on. So myself and a lot of our friends, we decided then we would do our lasting powers of attorney, because she had a property. Nobody could access her finances or do any of those important things because she had nothing in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought it's important that I have these things in place. And you can put what you like in there. You can put in there, well, I like to have coffee with no sugar, but with milk. And you can put anything in there. So to me, I'm helping those who are going to be caring for me and loving me, so that they know some of the things that I like and some of the things that I want. And to ensure that, if I don't have mental capacity, that somebody can look after my finances and things. I think it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting when we think about how people might spend their time and the things that have been important to them. I think planning that side of things is really important too, isn't it? We think about the finances, don't we, and who'll make a decision if I need to go into hospital, but also just information about me and about what makes me me, and whether I have sugar in my tea, or perhaps what's important to me in terms of my relationships, or
Yeah.
how I spend my time. And I think what's been quite interesting in the last 12 months or so is that we've all had to think a bit differently, haven't we, about how we spend our time,
Yes.
and perhaps connected with those things that we find, or maybe new things that we didn't know we enjoyed doing, that we've started to do at home as our worlds have got a little bit smaller. Is there any, has there been anything that you've particularly enjoyed doing over the last 12 months in this unusual situation we've been in that perhaps you wouldn't have tried before COVID?
Yes. I was always an outdoor active person, and for the first 2 weeks of lockdown, and I had to shield because I have some other health issues, I was climbing the walls. I didn't know what to do with myself. But I've thought about this since, and I think that some people who are not living with dementia since lockdown, they've got some idea of what it is for those of us who are living with dementia, what it's like to not be able to do the things that we want to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's been good. I do like doing physical activities, and one thing that I've done, which was brilliant, it's called Wellbeing in the Woods. And I was on a pilot project, and once a week we'd go literally into the woods for 2 hours at a time. And they would give us things like knives so we could whittle wood. We could light our own fires. And who would think that, they'd allow people living with dementia to take risks like that? And I think that we all need to take calculated risks. And it's just being in nature. And I think it gives you that calmness, because one thing I found is that my anxiety levels were really high when I wasn't able to go outside and do things.
Yeah.
And the first lockdown, the weather was quite nice. So I used to go out and paint a little bit of the fence in the garden. But during winter months, it was more difficult. But a few of my friends do crafts, and they've been teaching us craft things, and I've done a watercolor course, learned how to make greeting cards. I've learned how to make things out of clay and do leaf impressions on them.
Amazing.
And there's so many people living with dementia who have so many talents. And I defy anyone to say that people living with dementia can't learn new things, because I've learned a lot.
Very important point. Very important point. Tell us a bit about the dementia craftivists, because I think that's a little bit of what you're describing, isn't it? Who are the dementia craftivists, and what have you been up to?
The dementia craftivists, we come under the DEEP network largely, which stands for Dementia Empowering and Engagement Project. And it's very much a case of, it's the people living with dementia that decide what they want to do and how they want to do it. And we formed groups locally. I've formed one here in Eastbourne, where I live. And we've been meeting actually as a group of us women living with dementia. And we've been meeting over Zoom for over 2 years. So I was at an advantage. I knew how to use Zoom before lockdown. And when we've been talking, you find out about people and you find out things that they can do. And, one of the ladies liked painting. So she decided to do a painting group for us. And lots of people doing different things. So then Innovations in Dementia thought, well, we've got all these craftivists here, so we'll have dementia craftivists.
Wonderful.
We had one gentleman who likes making things from wood. As I just saw something pop up. What does DEEP stand for? It stands for Dementia Engagement and Empowerment Project. And I belong to the Dementia Diaries, so we record dementia diaries which are on DEEP. So you can go in and listen to things that we say, what we've been doing.
Yeah.
So it's very much a network of people all living with dementia, and we encourage one another.
She's so powerful, so powerful. What is it about crafting particularly, do you think, that's a powerful kind of activity?
I just find I sometimes do quite a few Zoom sessions, and I find that mentally very tiring.
Yeah.
And I think it's just nice. I enjoy doing physical things. I've always been quite practical. So to get a bit of wood and cut chunks out of it, or to the other things that I've done is just painting with watercolors. I had no idea what to do, so I've got the stuff now, so I can just pop out and I can go into the conservatory and I can do some drawing, or I can get some clay. And I did something last week, and we learned how to draw with ink, and literally just putting water on and blobbing the ink on. Well, I would never have thought of doing something like that. And the card making, I so enjoyed the card making. And we would get the packs sent out to us. So we had everything we needed to make the cards, or to do any of the other sessions, like the watercolors. And once you had the tools, you just sit back and watch and learn, and we can learn new things.
Yeah. And I suppose you don't have to, it might not be that everything you try you continue to do, but it's it's about having a go, I suppose, isn't it? And you never know what you might end up with.
Yeah.
Is your house full of crafts now then?
It is, yeah. And I've got all these boxes with all these different bits of kit in it. And I've just also been doing a course with Arts for Dementia and St Martin's in the Field Art College.
Lovely.
And they've been teaching us art things. And I thought art was all about painting. but it's not. It's about textures, and we've been writing sort of poems with words. And last week when we went, we had a bar of scope, and we were sculpting a bar of soap. Who would have thought of sculpting with a bar of soap? All you need is a bar of soap and something like a butter knife.
Absolutely.
So it's giving you the ideas as well.
So creative. It's brilliant. Thank you, Chris, for sharing all of that. We've recently joined forces, Innovations in Dementia and NAPA, haven't we? And run a very short pilot project. Do you want to just say a little bit about your involvement in that and the kind of impact it had on you?
Yes, definitely. It was some of the craftivists showing people within care homes certain skills and certain crafts and getting them involved. And I thought, well, I've never done anything like this. I've never taught anything. But I thought, what I can do, I can do this one where you get some clay, you roll out a piece of clay and cut a circle in it. And then you get some leaves and you press the leaves into the clay, and then you paint them, and then you take the leaf off, and you've got all the veins and everything. And you can put a hole through them and hang them up as decorations or use it as a coaster. And I thought, I don't mind having a go, and trying to teach them. It was quite funny trying to get the camera at the right angles for when I was talking and when I was trying to show things.
So this was all via Zoom, wasn't it?
All via Zoom. And I glanced at the screen at one point when I was demonstrating them what to do. And I thought, oh my gosh, all I can see is my left bosom. So I didn't quite have the camera angle right. But they interacted, they enjoyed it. And apparently a lot of the people who made them in the homes have given them as gifts. So what lovely gifts to give. And, if you wanted to keep them a bit longer, you just spray them with some varnish. So they so enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it because it's lovely to see people being happy.
Yeah.
And for them to have a sense of purpose and for them to see that they can still do things. So,
Definitely.
it gave me, I think it gave us both appreciation of each other. And even though it was over Zoom, I just wanted to hug them all. There was just that closeness between us.
Incredible connections that can be made even over Zoom. Amazing, really, isn't it? And thank you for sharing that. And in terms of working so closely with people with later stage dementia, how did that feel for you?
I think having been through it with family members, my father and my grandmother, I think that maybe I'm a bit more ready and a bit more prepared. But I think that one thing that some of these things that I've been doing has taught me is that age doesn't matter, because it's all about being with like-minded people and maybe being at the same level of dementia journey as other people. But it's about showing compassion, kindness and caring. And yes, I'm not looking forward to the day when, I'm not able maybe to communicate, because I do tend to talk quite a lot. But that's why I want to do as much as I can whilst I can. And my motto is to smile and be kind, because they cost nothing but mean an awful lot.
Absolutely.
And one of my friends, she goes into a local daycare centre for people living with dementia, and she's a beauty therapist. She does massage and things, and she just wanted to offer half of a day just to massage people's hands of people living with dementia. And some of the people couldn't wait, but there was one lady and she was like, no, don't touch me. She didn't communicate. Anyway, after some period of time, this lady offered her hand to my friend and she massaged her hand. And this lady hadn't spoken for such a long time, and she smiled and she started speaking to her. And all of that was just the power of touch. And some of these people, they don't get touch, do they? There's no, so we can do very little, but it can mean an awful lot.
Absolutely. I think we might have a little bit of feedback. So sorry for those who are listening to this if there's a bit of an echo. I can feel a bit of an echo. I'm not sure. So apologies if that's the case. We have some questions from our audience, Chris. You're happy to take a few questions now? Thank
Yes,
you for everything you've
for
done
it.
so far. So I will just check because I have the questions coming through on this another device in my hand. So one of the questions, I have to take my glasses off for this bit. One of the questions has come in from Vicky. Vicky says, can you let us know what is the worst thing that someone can say to you so that we can share and avoid this for other people? So I suppose it's making assumptions perhaps about what people like and don't like. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think don't assume is a big one, because you can assume that you know that what I want, but why not ask me what I want or what I'd like to do? And I've heard some people say so many times, "Oh, here we go. I've made you a cup of tea with two sugars," and they might say, "I don't take sugar in my tea." And I can remember somebody telling me, this is a true story about a gentleman who was in a care home, and every time the meals were brought around or tea and biscuits was brought around, he wouldn't accept, the food or the tea and biscuits. And this gentleman just spoke to him one day and said, "Oh, we noticed, you're not having biscuits and tea. And why is that?" And he said, "Because I haven't got any money to pay for them." And all they did was give him a wallet with a few coins in, and the gentleman started eating because he felt he could now pay his way.
Yeah.
So don't assume that he's not hungry and he doesn't want it. Try and find out why he doesn't want it. And there's always a solution.
Absolutely.
And use of language, I think, is important as well. You still hear people using demented person and dementia sufferer.
Oh, yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there are days when perhaps I do suffer. I don't want to be referred to as a dementia sufferer. I'm a person living with dementia as best as I can.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that reminder. I think it's an ongoing issue, isn't it? Something that we're trying to challenge all the time. That some of the language that can be really unhelpful. So thank you. That's a great reminder. Thank you for that. We've got another question from Prospect House, and this question is: how did you feel when you first received your diagnosis? You happy to talk about that?
Oh, I just thought my life had ended. It felt like I'd been given a death sentence. That's how it made me feel. And it made me feel hopeless. And I thought, well, that's it. My life is over. And I can remember thinking, how long have I got left to live? And I had read in an information leaflet that the average lifespan for somebody with vascular dementia was about 5 years after diagnosis. Well, it's been almost 5 years since I was diagnosed, and I'm still going strong. And I think that one of the things when you get a dementia diagnosis is that the doctors and the consultants are so keen to say, "You've got dementia, go home and get your affairs in order." And so many people, myself included, and a lot of my friends have been told that. So what hope have you got if you're faced with that type of thing? And I think it would be far better if the consultants would say, "Well, there'll be things that you can't do. However, there'll be lots of things that you can do." Because I just went into depression, and as I say, I became a bit of a prisoner in my own home. And I went to my GP just before I was diagnosed, and my GP said that she was there for my physical health and not my mental health. And they sent me to do a course with Mind on how to live with depression. And don't get me wrong, it was a good course, but it's not the place that I should have been at. And I think if there was only a leaflet that you were handed to say you can make contact with this person or that person, you can get a reduction in your council tax if you've got dementia.
Yeah.
I've had to find out all of these things for myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it did feel like I'd been given a death sentence. And then I thought about it, and I thought I've got a choice. I can do nothing, or I can try and make something still of my life.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chris. I think one of the things that there's a question here particularly about staff in care homes, and the question is around how can we make sure that we're getting activities right based on someone's life history, which is a good question, isn't it? How do we know when we're getting it right?
It is a really good question. And one thing I would say is speak to family members of the person living with dementia. They'll be able to tell you that what that person used to do as a job or things they enjoyed doing. And I'll give you an example. A friend of mine cared for a gentleman who's a retired priest, and he had dementia. And he ended up going into a care home. And the staff said to my friend one day, "Oh, he's getting so agitated and he's getting so cross." And they were saying things to him, "Oh, how are you, my duck?" And things like that. And my friend said, "This gentleman is a retired Roman Catholic priest, and he was always called Father. So if you call him Father, you probably get a better response from him." And they did. And as soon as they started addressing him as Father, he was a different person. So I would say speak to the family members and find out a little bit about the person, because they may not be able to tell you themselves. It may be a job that they used to do or something they enjoyed doing. I went into a day centre for people living with dementia, and there was a lady there who never said very much, but the staff found out that she used to be a ballet dancer, and she was on the top stages. And they managed to find a program of a ballet that she was in when she was a lot younger and some photographs. And they made a scrapbook for her of ballerinas and things like that. Well, unless they'd spoken to her or their family members, they would never have known that she was a national ballet dancer. And so communication, I think, is really important, whether that's with the person with dementia or loved ones or family members. And then you can get it right. And just remember that we all need purpose in our lives. If somebody said to me, "Oh, do you want to try and learn a new game of cards?" I'd say, "Oh, yes, please." Or shall we sit down and do a jigsaw puzzle and I'll help you? I'd say, "Yes, please," because it's all about giving you distractions and other things to think about, I think.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that that is quite central to that is sometimes knowing where to start, isn't it, with life history, knowing what questions to ask the person or the person's family. What do you think about people asking questions? Would you rather that, or would you rather volunteer the information?
I think sometimes if you ask questions directly, depending on what stage of the dementia journey the person's at, they may be able to answer the questions. But it might be better to say, "Oh, tell me something about what work you used to do."
Yeah.
Or tell me something about your hobbies. What was it that you like to do?
Yeah.
Do you like listening to music? So open-ended questions, I suppose, and letting the person speak about their life experiences.
Yeah, but I suppose not to be afraid to ask. It's
Not to be afraid to ask.
Yeah, I think sometimes if we've been working with someone for a while, we might think we should already know all the answers. But the reality is you can know someone for years and still learn new things about them, can't you? I mean, that's certainly the think about my closest friends or, people in my family. You don't know absolutely everything. You're still learning about each other, aren't you? So I think that's important for care and activity staff to remember that it's okay, even if you've been working with someone for a while, to keep asking family members for more information. Or we've noticed that Bill really likes this kind of music. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Did you know?
And don't be afraid of putting your foot in it, because I give talks to medical health professionals who are learning about dementia, maybe in a care home or in a community or something. And they say that they're scared of using the wrong language or putting their foot in it.
Yeah.
And I would say, don't be scared, because if the person doesn't like what you've said, then they'd soon pick you up on it. Oh, I would anyway. So, so don't be scared, don't be frightened, and just chat as though you would, like we're chatting now. Just chat to the person.
Yeah, that's how we get to know each other, isn't it? Really, it's just a bit, over time. You don't have to learn everything overnight, but over a period of time, getting to know somebody through conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing that I say is that somebody living with dementia may not remember who they were with yesterday or what they did, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
Absolutely.
So if somebody can make me feel as though they cared for me, that they were concerned, and I'll always remember that, because our emotions remain intact.
That
So
sounds like quality of life to me, Chris.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Another quick question. We've got a few minutes. What would you like to see more of if you moved into a care home? What would work well for you? So what would your ideal kind of care home provide, I guess? What would that be like for you?
Inclusion and activities, I think, because it's so easy, isn't it, in care homes, just to let somebody either stay in their room or just put them into a lounge and switch the television on. And we don't all like the same television programs. We don't all like the same music. But I think you can always find something that everybody can be included in. And we proved this with the dementia craftivism in the care homes. People who've never tried doing things have tried it, and they've so enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So just make sure that they're kept active, and give them some purpose in life and some quality of life.
That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Chris. So I think I'm going to ask you now if you've got any kind of parting comments, any particular thoughts or top tips that you'd like to share from your experience.
Oh, where do I start here? I think to encourage people living with dementia is a good one, because I think that although I might come across as being a confident person, I've lost a lot of my confidence. And I'm never sure if I'm saying the right thing or doing the right thing, or whether what I've got to say is of any benefit to people. So I think encouragement is good. And if somebody says to me, oh, that was really good, I got something out of that, well, let the person know, because we can't guess if we're doing it right or if we're doing it wrong. And the thing I said about, a person living with dementia will always remember how you made them feel. So smile and be kind, because that doesn't cost anything, but it might mean the world to that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so many other things I can say, but I don't know where to start and where to stop.
You've done a brilliant job. Thank you so much, Chris. It's been really lovely to chat with you this afternoon. And thank you to everybody who stayed with us. We had quite a group, quite an audience today. Thank you all very, very much. And if we didn't quite get to your question, I do apologise. We'll do our best to be in touch with an answer if we didn't get to it. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for your time and for sharing your experience this afternoon. And thank you to everybody who joined us. If you'd like more information or you need any support yourself with engagement activity ideas, please contact Natalie, our support line manager. She'd be very pleased to hear from you. If you're looking for resources, we've got lots of free resources. The new NAPA activities calendar, which is a monthly calendar available to everybody across the sector with an activity for every day to inspire you. So, please do keep in touch with us. And please come back next time. So on the 4th of May, I will be joined by Joe and Tony Burns from Burns Gym, and we will be chatting about the importance of physical activity as we launch Move It May. And we will be doing some moving and grooving. So join us at 2:30 on the 4th of May. You can sign up at Eventbrite. We look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Chris. Take care.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks.
Bye bye, everybody.